What's up, YouTube? Last week I talked about 5 independent wrestlers that were gonna have a breakout 2021. But this week, I want to talk about the female independent wrestlers because they're really good, and I can't believe I didn't include anyone on the last video. What's wrong with me? If you want to be shouted out in the next video, let me know your favorite independent women's wrestler in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. These are 5 independent women's wrestlers that are gonna have a breakout 2021. Before we get into the top 5, I need to talk about an honorable mention person that I really wanted to put on this list, and that is Dani B. Dani's new in the wrestling world, as in she just made her debut last year against Rachel Rose at Reality of Wrestling, Booker T's promotion. Again, when I say she's new to wrestling, as in she just made her in-ring debut last year. We're talking about 5-6 months ago, as in that's pretty new. Everyone I usually put on this list, I always talk about where they're gonna sign somewhere in 2021. While I don't necessarily think she's gonna sign somewhere this year, not because she's not a good wrestler, because she is, but she's also within a calendar year of her wrestling debut. But where do I want to see her sign down the line, maybe even next year, maybe the year after that, sometime, would actually be Ring of Honor. Without a doubt, ROH has taken the best care and attention for detail for their roster during the pandemic. And before this whole thing started, they were in the process of making a pretty stacked Women's of Honor division. Mandy Leon, Angelina Love, Velvet Sky, Marina Manic, etc. And Dani honestly would be a good fit for that Women's of Honor division. The championship's only been around for about 2, maybe going on 3 years now, so to add her name to that list one day would be probably within the first top 10 champions, so I think that'd be pretty cool. From the OKC, Dani won a fantasy camp in order to train at ROW in Houston. And based off her Instagram, she seems to have been training with some pretty esteemed names in the wrestling business, talking about Jazz, also NXT star Ember Moon. She has a solid in-ring style and a personality that everyone can really get behind. You can really enjoy her work. And the match recommendations I have for her is actually her debut match against Rachel Rose in ROW, and then leading down to probably one of her biggest matches so far against the Diamonds champion, Roxy, which I believe was maybe a month ago, maybe a couple weeks, if anything. Number 5, Sky Blue. This Chicago native, while young, has a few years of wrestling under her belt, not to mention the couple belts also on her shoulders. Sky is a persistent chain and lucha style wrestler, but kind of this everyday girl type of gimmick. Someone if you went to high school with them, oh yeah, she seemed like someone I'd be friends with, yeah, she seemed pretty dope. She's competed for GCW Generation Championship Wrestling, Premier Pro Wrestling, CSW, and as recent as September, she debuted for AEW. She's competed against some of the best female talent that wrestling has to offer, with the likes of Elena Black, Kylie Ray, and the Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo. For the past couple weeks, I've been watching a lot of her matches, and she really gives off a lot of AJ Lee vibes, you know what I mean? Simply down to her personality, how she wrestles in the ring, and also she got Chucks on, bro. What's more relatable than wearing Chucks? Who doesn't own at least 1 to 2 pair of Chucks in their closet? I got probably 4 actually, so maybe too many. All the national companies love to brag on the fact that they sign young stars, so having her who's in her early 20s, they would be lucky to have her on a roster. So where do I think Sky would be a great fit? Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling gives all their knockouts a fair shake of being on television, and to actually get them over with opportunities for the Knockouts Championship, having their own singles feuds, or even the new Knockouts Tag Team titles that they just reintroduced. And with Impact's endless connections in the industry, once travel restrictions are kind of lifted so she can actually go places without the fear of I don't want the deadly virus, I'm sure she would make waves in a dominant lucha style promotion. And with Impact's connection with New Japan, and New Japan actually slowly adding more women's matches to their shows, including Wrestle Kingdom, the sky is literally the limit. Oh, wait, hold up, that was a pun. I didn't even mean to make that pun. Nah, I'm gonna roll with it. The sky is literally the limit for this amazing talent. And some match recommendations I would give would be her GCW match against Deonna Purrazzo, CSW versus Kylie Ray, and her AAW debut against Elena Black. Number 4, Trisha Dora. She's the one that has the really big green belt. Yeah, okay, so we know what we're talking about now. Also, she's from right here in Washington, D.C. Gotta love my DMV people, man. She actually joined the Army when she was 19 years old, and after that, she would train at the 3D Academy in Florida, where she's wrestled for Primetime Pro Wrestling in Washington, D.C., Pro Wrestling 2.0, Hood Slam, and many others. She currently holds the Pan-African World Diaspora Wrestling Championship, a world championship that was created in order for black wrestlers to have opportunities to wrestle for top championships. And where did they hold the tournament for this? Right here, Washington, D.C. I mean, literally down the street from my house. She won the championship after a grueling tournament in D.C. where she defeated Darius Lockhart and Mr. Grimm to win the championship. Her wrestling style is definitely a powerhouse, with her running lariat actually being called Lariat Tubman, which is the sickest name ever. I love that. But if Trish gets signed somewhere in 2021, where should it be? AEW. Everyone at some point gets a title shot, a storyline, something that plays out on television. If Trish can have a breakout performance on Dark and then Dynamite, she will be made in the women's division. And some match recommendations for her would be her versus Lacey Lane at Pro Wrestling 2.0, her versus Lidney Snow at WrestleCade 2020, and also her versus Big Swole at NSW. Number 3, Priscilla Kelly. I'm kind of shocked, just like the next person. You would assume by 2021 that Priscilla Kelly would already be signed somewhere, but she isn't. And what? She competed in the 2018 WWE Mae Young Classic. She's a appeared on Dynamite, she's been on Dark, and pretty much every major independent promotion in North America. With a backstory of growing up in a very strict family, she used wrestling as an act of rebellion, but also for equality for female performers, for self-expression, and kudos to her for taking those steps and actually accomplishing a lot. Actually, during one of Lita's media tours where she was promoting this project called Kayfabe, it was her, Gail Kim, and Christy Hemme. It was supposed to be like the scripted wrestling show all about like women's wrestling. It sounded really cool. I don't know if that's still gonna happen because of the pandemic or what, but during that time, Lita literally mentioned Priscilla by name, the only one she mentioned, as wanting to have her on for this project. Like, I think that's a pretty crazy compliment. I've always been a fan of Priscilla. I've even interviewed her on this channel before, so you can watch that if you would like. I'm so surprised that AEW or WWE has not reached out to her to actually sign her yet. This match is actually aired on NWA Shockwave. It was her versus Thunder Rosa for the NWA World's Women's Championship. Hands down, this was top 10 women's wrestling matches of 2020. Where would she fit best, in my opinion, it would be AEW. And with the NWA title being frequently defended on Dynamite and Dark, I would love to see her actually become the NWA Women's World Champion. She would do wonders as champion. She would also be a great opponent for Serena Deeb. And some match recommendations I have for would be the NWA Shockwave match of her versus Thunder Rosa for the title. Next would be Kelly versus Kylie Ray at First Wrestling, Kelly versus Tessa Blanchard at PCW Ultra, and her Mae Young Classic match against Deonna Purrazzo. Number 2, Alley Cat. The definition of independent women's wrestling, I feel like, is summed up by Allie. I just think she's the standard bearer for independent women's wrestling. I think it's about time. She bosses up and levels up to a big promotion. She's become a staple in all GCW shows for intergender matches, including facing Ethan Page, Matthew Justice, Mance Warner, Max Caster, and a Texas Death match against Nick Gage. The first time I ever saw her was actually at the Macon Towns Classic in 2018. I had never heard of her. I know I went down there with Nova Pro Wrestling. It was a lot of fun. And Big Gold Belt Podcast. But the highlight tape for the whole Macon Towns Classic is on this channel, so you can watch it if you want. I've heard of her name before, but I had never seen her at that point. I didn't know what her gimmick was. I knew her last name was Cat, so I kind of had a feeling, a little inclination that it would probably be a cat, but I was like, nah, that would be dumb, right? No, she was a cat. Like, whiskers on the face. I feel like it was just some other random girl. It would probably be considered like some type of furry type stuff, and that would be questionable. But somehow she made being a human-sized cat work. Like I said in the last video, GCW is a new PWG. It has the potential to be the 2021's version of like 2010 Ring of Honor or the early 2000 ECW. She also recently spoke to Sean Ross Sapp saying that she hasn't even heard from any major companies yet, and that's ludicrous. Hopefully this is the year for her, because where would I think she'd be a great fit? I have to go Impact Wrestling. Simply for the fact that she's still a cat, right? And while I think it's great, back in the 90s, Vince made Trish bark like a dog, and I'm not trying to see that again. Somehow she'd be fighting Alexa Bliss, and then like they would make her like cough up a fur ball or something, or chase a ball of yarn. Instant match recommendations would be her GCW match against Nick Gage in the Texas Death Match, so that's always cool. You're gonna kill a cat in Texas. I'm pretty sure it has to break some type of law. Finally, without a doubt, number 1 has to go to Roxy. I had a chance to talk to Roxy last year on this channel. You could tell how passionate and determined she is to actually make it in wrestling. She started training at 13. Like, you know what I was doing when I was 13? Probably trading Pokemon cards at a local library. From training at the age of 13 to holding the Reality of Wrestling Diamonds Championship while she was still in high school, and she's on track to being the longest reigning champion if she isn't already the longest reigning champion. From a rookie walking through a curtain to a veteran before she's even old enough to rent a car or drink alcohol. The prodigy has so much experience that it's just a matter of time until she gets signed, because she's only 19. WWE will be foolish not to get her before she turns 20. They can brag that they signed a 19-year-old. They love bragging about signing young guys. Look at all the young stars they have signed and bragged about their age. Roxy has dominated Texas Wrestling and ROW, Mission Pro, New Texas Pro, and Laredo Wrestling Alliance. It's about time that she also bosses up, levels up, and makes it over to that young NXT. She is bound for WWE. This whole segment I've been overlaying match clips of her, so you guys already know she's good in the ring. I don't need to talk about that. She's also a huge fan of The Rock, and who's signed to NXT right now? I don't know, maybe The Rock's daughter? Yeah, there's a story there. Run with that, please. And given her size, she is a made baby face. There's so many like really tall women in NXT, like Rhea Ripley, Raquel Gonzalez, and Mercedes Martinez said like if they were the heel and she's the face, there's a really good story. Plus some match recommendations I have for her is her NWA title match against Thunder Rosa at Mission Pro, her New Texas Pro match against Kylie Ray, and on the Title Match Wrestling YouTube channel is her versus Evilise. But yeah, guys, that's the video. If you really enjoyed, in the comments down below, let me know your favorite independent women's wrestler, or if it's one of the 5 or 6 ladies I just talked about. Also, throw their names in the comments down below. But make sure to like, comment, share, and always subscribe, and we outie.
We going up like 1,000. I'm a flex just like a muscle man Malcolm. We going up like 1,000. I'm a flex just like a muscle man Malcolm. When it just like 1, 2, 3. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze.